Think about it. Think about it. Think about it.
Yeah, welcome everyone to High School Basketball Weekly. Tim Morey alongside of Rick Bull. And Rick, it's great to be back in studio. We were on the road the last couple weeks, and we're ready to get right back into it as we are fast approaching the midpoint of this high school basketball season. And we've had some surprises so far as the season has gone along, Rick. And we'll get started right off with the boys' action, talking about Mount Greylock, who has yet to win a game so far this season. Young team, the Mounties.
Yeah, the Mount Greylock Mounties are very young and very inexperienced, and because of the transfer of Noah Kane Smells to PHS,
Right.
That changed the dynamics of that team. Not that they were going to be a Western Mass qualifier or even a D5 or D4 qualifier this year. It would have given them a little bit of experience with their leading scorer coming back, but with his transfer, it's like the coach has taken a team and starting. He wanted to start last year, Tim, with his program, and it's probably going to take Tommy Verdell a couple more years to get the younger players some varsity experience. So they did play 3 games last week, and of course some of the teams that we cover, all 3 schools, 6 teams for 3 schools. With the break at Christmas and New Year's, the action was few and far between, but I will say that the action is fast and furious right now. Greylock dropped all 3 games last week. They got outscored 26-8 in the second quarter and lost to Turner's Falls 68-39. Nolan Barnes is the bright light for the Mounties. He's been their high scorer all year. He had 21. They lost to Libertus Academy 85-47. Barnes again with 12, and lost to Lee 50-35. They did lead in that game after 1, but only scored 6 points in the second quarter and fell behind and never really could recover. And Barnes again had 14, so he had a really, really nice week. And he's just a young player. I think he's the 10th grader. His brother went through that program, and they got Smith Academy next. So 0-8, 0-3 in the league. But I think what Coach Verdell, if you were to talk to him, he would just say he just wants to see some improvement as the season goes on with the young Mounties. Absolutely.
Another team that's yet to get on the winning side of the ledger, Rick, is the McKeon Hornets. They now stand at 0-4, but they've been in some games. They've been competitive. They just haven't been able to get over the hump so far.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, they got a couple of kids. They've got Zach Howland and they've got Eric Rougeau, and they are the experience of that team. And there's a lot of players that have got some experience, but not a lot of time on the floor for Coach Bullitt. So where we say Greylock's already played 8 games, McCann has only played 4 games, even though they haven't won it yet. But they have been competitive. They lost to Ludlow 71-59. They actually led after 1 and only trailed 29-25 at the half, but they didn't have a very good second half. They got outscored 23-10 in that second half, so in the third quarter, as a matter of fact. But Eric Rougeau did lead the way with 19. They only played the 1 game last week. Howland had 14. Jack Dolan, a senior that's getting some playing time this year, didn't have a lot of experience up until this year, had 9, and they're at Westfield Tech. So they're going to pick up a few wins, I think, this year, Tim, down the road. I think that they just got to be patient, practice hard, work hard, and let whatever happens, happens.
Absolutely. Drury, Rick, had a great week last week. They won all 3 of their league games during the week, and they're starting on a roll. They now stand at 6-2, 3-1 in the league, and they're having some great success early on here in the season, and they're getting some great contributions from Jorge Bond, and they're going to be hopefully getting back a couple of their injured players here as we go down the road.
Yeah. They did play 3 games last week, all league games, all Hampshire South games. They had a home game against Mahar that was actually played when you and I were down doing Hoosick and Wacona, and they came away with a hard-fought 67-59 win. They led by 7 at the half. Mahar never went away. They got close in the second half, but Drury pulled away late. Jorge Bond did continue his hot scoring by knocking down 5 threes on his way to 26 points to lead the Blue Devils. Sammy Mormon, very consistent double-figure score at 16, and Sam Bullitt had 7. And then they beat Hopkins Academy, who was a little bit down this year, Tim, in their program, 60-30. Mormon had 16 and 12 rebounds, 3 block shots. Sam Bullitt had 11. Jorge Bond only had 7, but he had a poor shooting night, actually. I actually went to that game that night.
Yeah.
And like all shooters, he had wide open shots, and we've seen it with many, many young athletes, both boys and girls. They just couldn't find the net that night.
Right.
But with a 30-point victory, Coach Reset really wasn't too concerned, I'm sure, about that. And then they handled Lennox on the road, 67-55. Jorge Bond with 29, so he found it that night for sure. 16 in the first half alone. Mormon had a great week. He had 20. Sam Bullitt had 11. So Player of the Week was going to be difficult this week because it could have been Barnes from Greylock, it could have been Mormon.
Right.
You know, so and we're keeping you suspense. So it's coming up very shortly. But some of these young athletes are very, very they're very talented and very worthy of our Player of the Week. And sometimes it's really hard. We try to get as many players in the mix as we possibly can. But Drury's got a big one coming up, Tim.
Yeah, tonight they're playing Pioneer Valley tonight at Pioneer Valley.
And
that's a great one.
Right, and I said to Jorge Bond recently, well, actually it was when we did the Hoosick Valley girls game. They were down there watching the game, and I said, hey, Jorge, how about knocking off Pioneer? And he said, we got that on our schedule. So it's quite a rivalry, Tim, as we've mentioned on this show, with Coach Thayer and Coach Reset. 2 great programs here in Western Mass. They've been battling for several years now. They're in the same league, same division. Drury won both league matchups last year, but still didn't get the seed enough to get a home game against them last year, and then they fell on the third one. It's so hard when 2 good teams go at it to win all 3 games for sure. So the Drury's marked that on their calendar. They like nothing better than to knock off Pioneer. And we'll see. We'll report on that game next week.
Well, that's for sure. That's going to be a good one. And whenever Pioneer Valley tangles up with Drury, whether it's here or up in Pioneer, those have been great games.
Tim, that's a great program that they have down there. I mean, they were a Division State top 4 with Hoosick Valley last year. And Coach Thayer's got he's reloaded. He's got his son, the sharpshooter, Brendan Thayer, and Redeker, and there's one other, and they're just a very good team. Coach Reset will have all he can do to take them down on their home floor, but it's very doable because they've done it many times in the past.
Well, Hoosick Valley, Rick, they had a pretty good week themselves. They went 2-1 during the week. And in a classic that we broadcast and showed last week, it was our game of the week, a double overtime game with Wauconah, fierce rival, another Berkshire County contest, and boy, that was a real dandy for us to cover.
Right, and as I mentioned when I do the games with you, I've always mentioned that we seriously do this. We look at the schedule, and we want to see when Coach Belcher is bringing the boys to Cheshire and when Coach K is bringing the girls to Cheshire. We try to get those games booked in our schedule just because of the classics that we've had. But this might have been the ultimate classic, and according, we've been doing this for a long, long time. You've been doing it for a few more years than I have. And Peter Gentile, our colleague, has been with us all through this. And Peter thought it was one of the best games, maybe the best game that we've ever done for excitement. Back and forth. It's a game that Hoosick Valley kind of just trailed, got off to a slow start, and they found a way to catch them in the end. And they outscored the Warriors 15-3 in the second overtime. So we were there for a while, but it was a great one. And we've got some.
Yeah, we got some clips. And the first one here, Rick, is believe it or not, is Blake Mazzio. There it is. He takes a 3-pointer, and that is the first lead of the game for Hoosick Valley in the fourth quarter.
Then we have a putback here. Hard work by Quinnell Bradley.
Yeah, he did a great job on the boards. And then there's Aiden Wicks with a 3. He had a big game for them. And then this full court foul there by Bradley. Great hustle. And then the freshman sharpshooter kicks the ball out, and he banked Monahan, who had 19 points on the game. But it was back and forth. Hoosick Valley never went away. They trailed They were down by 10 points in the fourth quarter, in the midway through the fourth quarter, and they got hot, and they hung in there.
Yeah, they did, and they actually had a couple starters out early in the game that got some playing time later in the game. They really helped them out, but that was a great game. And Waukegan always comes with a pretty good team themselves, and they were ripe for the pickings. The Hurricanes were that night, but they didn't let it happen. They just never gave up. I just love the audacity of these teams. I mean the tremendous efforts. What I'm trying to say of both these squads, offensively and defensively, they're just tenacious, and it was a great game to call.
Sure.
And, that was a big win for the Hurricanes.
Right, and two other games during the week at Hoosick tangled. They tangled with Greenfield, the team that Jerry's familiar with. They played Greenfield earlier the week, and they beat Greenfield.
Yeah, 76-68. They trailed 56-50 entering the fourth, but then they caught them and took the lead. So it was a nice win for the Hurricanes, and Aiden Wicks had a big night. He had 27. Trey Moynihan had 23. Will Hakes, he's really come on this year. I could see him coming on a little bit last year too, but the senior did great. He had 12, and Bradley had 9. And then they did fall to a very, very solid and good South Hadley Tigers team, 62-55. They trailed 45-31 heading into the fourth. Wicks again led with 32. He had 5 threes. Bradley had 13, and they got a real tough one coming up when the Monument Spartans come to Cheshire.
Yep, that'll be tomorrow night at Hoosick Valley, and that's an outstanding Monument Mountain team.
And Aiden Wicks, we're going to give him some accolade this week.
We certainly are, because big week for Wicks, and he is the junior boys high school basketball player of the week. And there you see it, the outstanding week that he had, Rick.
Yeah, Trey Moynihan had a great week. Nolan Barnes from Mount Greylock had a great week. Sam Moorman had a great week. Jorge Bond had a great week scoring-wise. But Aiden Wicks, the junior from Hoosick Valley, just with an incredible week of 15, 27, and 32. And you can't leave him off there.
No.
He makes a difference. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's a big part of Hoosick Valley's offense, and I know Coach Robinson depends on him a lot. He's a quick guard, and he's having a great season so far. Switching gears now, Rick, let's turn it over now on the girls' side, and again, McCann, they've yet to win this year. They've had a rough start to the season, but they're going along, and they've got some games coming up.
Yeah, they only had one game last week. They fell to Lee 54-13. They're 0-6, 0-3 in the league. And I did notice in that box score that the leading scorer, Faith Brazo, didn't have anything. I don't have any facts or figures or information on that game. She was in the box score, but did not score in the game if she did play. Madison Rougeau, that's a new name that we've never called, with 5 points leading the way. And so Coach Krantz is just going to have to be patient with his kids and let the program build. They've had good teams in the past. Coach Budai had some good teams over the last several years. We've enjoyed going down and covering them, and hopefully the girls will continue to work hard and they'll find a way to pick up a win.
Mount Greylock Mounties stand at 500 now, Rick, 4-4, and they split during the past week, winning a rematch at Taconic that they had beaten the Taconic Braid Thunder earlier in the year, and they tangled with Drury later in the week. Yeah,
as you said, Tim, they played Taconic back-to-back games and won them both. The second one was 48-36. Greylock led 22-10 at the half, and the leading scorer for them wasn't Tanley Drake, who we announce every week as their leading scorer. Was Maddie Powell with 19. Tanley did have 12, and 6 apiece for her sister Madison Drake and AJ Pelkey. And then offense just wasn't there, and it cost them in a 49-26 loss at Pope Francis. Drake led the way with 10. Greylock only scored 13 in each half, so they had a cover on their hoop, and it happens sometimes. We've noticed a lot of boys and girls low-scoring contests this year. And then they lost it at home to Drury, 71-32. Drake again, Tanley with 12 points, and they're going to be at Belchertown tomorrow, the 10th, Tim.
Right.
That's another league matchup.
Right, but this young Mountie team continues to develop, Rick. Again, they have to be happy with where this squad is. There's still a very young team. Coach Jacoby is bringing this team along nicely. They stand at 500, and I think they're going to have a good shot at qualifying for the tournament this year.
Yeah, he's always been under 500, trying to get there and look up, and I think he's got a pretty good chance of doing that. They got off to a great start in the Franklin Tech tournament. I think they played a couple of teams that really got them off to a good start, and the league they play in is not easy. It's got Agawam in it. It's got Belchertown. It's got Pope Francis. It's got Drury. So they've got their work cut out for them, and so we'll see what happens. But hopefully they can hang around that 500 mark. And but you're right. They're very, very, very young, and I don't know how many seniors Coach Jacoby has offhand, but I know Mia Filio is one of them. But they're not senior oriented at all. They're very young. And
the Lady Blue Devils from Drury, they went 2-1. Had a pretty good week. They stand at 4-2 now, 3-2 in the league. And this is also a young squad, Rick. We've covered them on Northern Berkshire Community Television. But I think this team is going to be heard from as the season goes along and these young players continue to grow and develop.
The young players are doing extremely well, according to Coach Downey. He's very, very pleased with them. The forecast that he gave me coming into the season was that he was very young, but he was going to be playing a lot of players. He didn't know who the starting lineup was going to be day after day after day because there's so many of the girls that were ready to fill that role. He's just trying to get the right players on the floor at the right time. There's no question about it. They're built around Jacinta Felix. She's the leader. She's the leading scorer of that team. Everything does go around her. She's the ball handler. That's the player you want to have the ball in her hands. But they are still very young. The Haydens are doing well. Delaney and Ashland, Addison Shepard, Elise Daly, Eva Moser. He's getting good play lately from Hannah Lacasse, a senior that sat out last year and came back this year. So they're doing really well. And they did start out by beating Lee on the road 54-32. That was Lee's first loss of the season. Drury led 29-12 at the half and 46-24 after 3. Jacinta Felix led the way with 12. And Lily Moranti, a ninth grade guard that's got a little bit of size and is a good shooter and is looking to score and is scoring lately, has been a very, very bright spot for Coach Downey. I'm sure he's very, very pleased with Lily's play. Addison Shepard had 8. She's just a ninth grader also. And Ashley Hayden and Hannah Lacasse had 7 and 6. They lost a close one to Belchertown, a division foe, 50-44 on the road. Felix led the way with 13. Delaney Hayden had 10. Moranti had 8. Then they went over and took care of Mount Greylock in Williamstown, 71-32. Felix with 16, Lacasse with 11, Moranti with 10, Elise Daly with 8, and 7 apiece for Eva Moser and Addison Shepard. So all those kids that I mentioned are getting minutes and they're scoring. And I think Coach Downey, if you were to talk to him, is pretty pleased where he stands right now at 4-2, 3-2 in the league.
Yeah, and for her efforts during this past week, School Player of the Week is the senior Jacinta Felix for the Lady Blue Devils.
Yeah, she's got 12 points against Lee, 13 against Belchertown, 16 against Greylock, and they may not be 20 some odd points, but they're double figures and great efforts by Jacinta.
Yeah, she's a key to that Drury squad. I know Coach Downey knows that, Rick. She really is the heart and soul of that squad this year, both scoring and defensively.
Yeah, and she's been playing with a heavy heart too because of the tragic loss of her sister. And they were in that Agawam game. They led by 9 at halftime. Tim,
right?
Just didn't have enough firepower in that second half. They've got Agawam coming up for the rematch too. That'll be a tough one. Always is against a very good team on the road.
Right. Yep. Hoosick Valley. Undefeated going into last night's the game that we covered, which will be following this broadcast, High School Basketball Weekly, you want to stay tuned for that one between Hoosick Valley and Wahconah. But before we get to that, Rick, they also played at Hampshire and had a very nice win down there.
Yeah, Hampshire's a league foe in the Central, and they came away with a 59-46 win. MMS game high 24 points, including 10 free throws. And we're going to talk about her again in a few minutes with the other game that we just covered. And she nails her free throws. I talked about on the air how automatic I thought she was, how poised she is, and it's usually nothing but net at the free throw line. So she had a great game for the Hurricanes. Ashlyn LaSure had 11. Reagan Shea had 7. They've been the 3 top scorers for Coach Frederick all year long. And then, of course, in a game that we just broadcasted, they suffered their first loss to a solid, not the best team Coach Case had, but a pretty solid squad nevertheless with the Wahconah Warriors.
And a young squad at that, Rick. It was a real rock fight with this Berkshire County foe, Wahconah. It was tied at 16 apiece at the halftime. That's how low scoring it was. And we've got some highlights of this game to go through it. Here, Hoosick Valley got off to a hot start right to start the game here. And that's Reagan Shea right off the bat with a three-pointer. And so that gave them the 3-0 lead. And then Emma Meswar, and the first 2 shots they made, and they're up 6-0. And again, you see a beautiful drop-down pass there by Emma Meswar. And of course, then an interior pass to Hannah Lohr. Some good passing by the Hurricanes. There you go with Danielle Hagmar, just a freshman in the fourth quarter. Now we're in fourth quarter action, and some big baskets were made by Hagmar, the freshman. And then eventually things got, and here's the big one, the big shot there was by Brooke Harrington, who had a huge 3 late in the game. And Wahconah at one point trailed in this game 35-10. They went on a 10-0 run to win it 40-35 to close out the game.
Yeah, it reminded me a little bit, Tim, of the game we did, the boys Wahconah game, where Wahconah led, and they only led by single figures, but it felt like it was a lot more. And it was like that with the Hurricanes last night. You felt that they had a bigger lead than they did, and the defensive pressure was intense and incredible on both ends. And I thought the Coach Case kids in the second half really picked up the defensive pressure, especially the trapping on the end lines and on inbounds passes. And on the other flip side, Coach Frederick's kids were doing the same exact thing. There were turnover after turnover, and a lot of them were unforced, but it was because of the pressure. There were times when Wahconah couldn't even get the inbounds pass in. They threw it away a couple of times. They had a 5-second violation called. So it wasn't the prettiest offensive game that we've seen.
That's for
but
sure.
It was really physical, hard-fought game last night, and the game was tighter than 40-35. That's for sure. A win's a win, and a loss a loss, but it was a close game all the way down to the end.
Yeah, Hoosick Valley now they stand at 5-1, 4-1 in the league, 5-1 overall, but they've got a tough schedule. They play Pittsfield tonight up at Hoosick Valley, and Pittsfield is really one of the class teams in Western Mass. That's going to be a tough go for the Hurricanes.
Yeah, the
tonight.
Pittsfield girls are undefeated right now, Tim. They're at 6-0. They beat Chicopee last week, and they upset Springfield Central 51-49 and beat Chicopee Comp. They got a really good squad. So it's going to be a real tough game. Pittsfield always goes to Cheshire, or the Hurricanes go down to PHS, and they always have pretty tight ball games. You never know which way they're going to go, but this is going to be a real battle for the Hurricanes when PHS comes to town.
No question about it. And Rick, while we got a moment here, let's talk a little bit about something we have been talking about, which is High School Basketball Weekly's selection of the top 10 players for boys and girls for Hoosick Valley and Drury. We're compiling information as we speak. We're getting information from some of our viewers, former coaches, former players, and we're trying to put together the top 10 players for each, both the boys and the girls. And of course, at the bottom of your screen, you can see the email address here at Northern Berkshire Community Television. And if you have some information, input, or favorites that you think should be part of these top 10 team for each school, feel free to email us here at Northern Berkshire Community Television. Right at the bottom of the screen is the email address. And we've been talking about it amongst ourselves. We've been focusing on the girls. We're going to announce our selections on air when we do the Hoosick Valley Drury girls game. That's going to be live from Hoosick Valley on January 23rd, Thursday, January 23rd. We'll have our selections at that time, and viewers can agree, disagree, debate our selections. But we really talked about some of the great players at both schools, Rick. And there are so many wonderful players at both schools over the years.
No, we really have.
And we're going back into the 70s and doing the research.
Yep. It's going to be a little bit easier, Tim, as you probably would agree, to do the girls, because that's when basketball really kicked off and got very popular, was in the mid-70s. So getting the girls will be a little bit easier than the boys, because we just don't have enough information on some of the teams at either Adams High or Drury, say in the 40s or 50s, where there are probably some great players. But we can take over from the 60s on, and we're pretty confident with our viewers, former coaches and players that have tuned in to us and given us their picks and information. So this isn't Rick Bowe and Tim Morey's top 10. It's everything we compile from all the information we get from local fans. And we've got some fans that have been going to games for 40, 50 years. So, we might not be spot on, but the intent is just to honor those great players over the years.
And it really is a lot of fun. When we do our broadcast of games, we will speak with fans that we know have been following the teams for years, and they weigh in with some of their choices and selections and observations about some of the great players that have played at these two fine schools over the years, going on the girls' side all the way back into the 70s for Hoosick Valley, Paula Hayden, Drury, Mary Gaudreau, Taylor DeSanti, Sarah Petropoulos, Sarah DiArcangelo, Beth Lorch, some great players over the years that have graced the hardwoods here at Drury and Hoosick Valley.
Yeah, Coach Franzoni has been very kind. He's our part-time colleague here anyway.
That's right.
But he let us know how he felt about the girls that he coached over the years, and those kids that have played after his years, and kids that played well before his years. So he'll play a major role in this also with some other coaches, other players. We've talked to parents and just sports enthusiasts.
Right, absolutely. And so, again, we're going to announce our selections for the girls' teams, Drury and Hoosick Valley, during our broadcast of high school basketball, live broadcast on January 23rd up at Hoosick Valley, when the Blue Devils will take on Hoosick Valley in a rivalry game at Hoosick Valley. That's Thursday, January 23rd, and we'll have our selections then. And on the boys' side, Rick, we will announce those at the live broadcast of the boys' game between Hoosick Valley and Drury up at Drury on Tuesday, February 11th, which is the last regular season game for both teams prior to any tournament action that they may qualify for. So feel free, again, to weigh in. Email Northern Berkshire Community Television. You can reach out to either Rick or I as well, and let us know your thoughts. The top 10 of all time players, both at Drury and Hoosick Adams. And of course, you can check us out here on High School Basketball Weekly every Thursday evening at this time, starting at 7:30. We rebroadcast at Saturday at 10 a.m. and rebroadcast again Sunday at 7 p.m., followed by our game of the week. And this week it's a Dan.
I got to thank somebody, Tim, before we go off the air, because I promised him last night. We had a little technical difficulty down around our broadcast table last night,
Yeah.
and we got saved by the Drury basketball team, the boys.
That's right.
So thank you very much to Jorge Bond, to James Varelis, and Connor Hinkle for helping us out. And I said we're going to put a plug in for you guys. So thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, and we'll see you next week on High School Basketball Weekly. Stay tuned for that great Wauconah Hoosick Valley girls game following right after us.
So long.
Good night.